First Contact Protocol. Commander Sarah Chen had witnessed 17 sunrises over Jupiter's swirling storms from Jupiter Station's observation deck, but this morning's view was different. The gas giant's usual majestic orange glow was overshadowed by the arrival of 12 crystalline vessels, their surfaces refracting sunlight like massive diamonds suspended in space. "Status update," she demanded, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her stomach. Lieutenant Rivera's fingers danced across his holographic display. The Virani fleet maintains position at 40,000 kilometers from the station. Their energy signatures are consistent with standby mode. "No weapons charged, Commander." Sarah nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the alien vessels. Humanity had known about the Virani for 3 months now, ever since their quantum communications burst reach Earth with a simple message: "We come to prevent extinction." The United Earth Defense Force had spent those months preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, Sarah felt woefully unprepared. "They're hailing us," Rivera announced. "Standard frequency." On screen. The holoscreen materialized before her, and Sarah found herself face to face with a being that defied human expectations of alien life. The Virani admiral appeared almost crystalline, like their ships, with faceted features that caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but where humans had skin, the Virani had what looked like living crystal. "Commander Chen," the admiral's voice resonated directly in her mind, a feature of Virani communication technology. "I am Admiral Cathor of the Virani Collective. We request immediate docking permissions." Sarah straightened her uniform. "Admiral, while we appreciate your arrival, Earth protocols require a full quarantine and security screening before any docking can be authorized. Additionally, as per United Earth Defense Force regulations, I must request that your fleet maintain a minimum distance of 60,000 kilometers from our station." The crystalline features of Cathor's face shifted in what might have been surprise or amusement. "Commander, the threat we come to warn you about does not afford us the luxury of your protocols. Time is of the essence. Nevertheless, Admiral, these protocols exist for a reason. They're non-negotiable." Thor's form seemed to shimmer with intensity. "Commander Chen, in the time we spend observing your protocols, entire civilizations could be lost. We have already witnessed such losses. Your pride in your procedures will not save you from what comes." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. "With all due respect, Admiral, humanity has survived this long by being cautious. I won't jeopardize the safety of this station or Earth by ignoring our security measures." The Virani admiral was silent for a long moment, its crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. Then, to Sarah's surprise, it made a sound that might have been laughter. "You remind me of myself, Commander, during the fall of Viren Prime. I too once believed that pride in our ways would be our salvation." Thor's form shifted, and a small object materialized on Sarah's deck, a crystal sphere the size of a tennis ball. "What is this?" Sarah demanded, security personnel immediately training weapons on the object. "A gift of truth, Commander. Hold it, and you will understand why we are here. Why your protocols, while admirable, are a luxury we cannot afford." Sarah stared at the sphere, her training screaming at her to follow procedure, to have it quarantined and examined. But something in Cathor's tone, something in the urgent way the crystal caught the light of Jupiter's reflection, made her hesitate. "Commander," Rivera warned, "regulations state." "I know the regulations, Lieutenant." Sarah moved toward the sphere, her heart pounding. She had read enough first contact scenarios to know this moment could change everything. With a deep breath, she picked up the crystal. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Her mind exploded with images, worlds being consumed by living darkness, entire solar systems going dark, and the desperate flight of the Virani from their home world. But most terrifying were the calculations, the cold, hard numbers showing the trajectory of this cosmic horror. It was coming, and Earth lay directly in its path. Sarah gasped as she dropped the sphere, her hands shaking. The images faded, but the knowledge remained, burning in her mind with terrible clarity. She looked up at Cathor's image on the screen, seeing the Admiral in a new light. "How long?" she managed to ask. "At current velocities, 3 Earth months until first contact with your outer colonies. 6 until it reaches Earth." Sarah closed her eyes, her mind racing. Everything in her training told her to follow procedure, to maintain the protocols that had kept humanity safe through its first steps into space. But the images from the crystal sphere haunted her. This wasn't about pride anymore. This wasn't even about security. This was about survival. She opened her eyes and faced Cathor. "Admiral, I'll need 10 minutes to clear your approach with Earth Command. Then we can begin docking procedures for your lead vessel. The rest of your fleet will maintain current position until we establish proper protocols for large-scale docking." Cathor's form brightened slightly. A compromise. Perhaps there is hope for both our species after all. As Sarah turned to give the necessary orders, her gaze drifted to Jupiter's swirling storms. Somewhere out there, beyond the red spot and the solar system's boundaries, something was coming. Something that had already devoured countless civilizations. Her hand brushed the crystal sphere, still warm from its activation. "Lieutenant Rivera, get me Earth Command. Priority Alpha." And she paused, weighing her next words carefully. "Begin drafting modified docking procedures for crystalline-based vessels. We're about to rewrite the first contact protocol." The next few hours would change everything. Not just protocols and procedures, but humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. As Sarah watched the first Virani ship begin its approach, she realized that sometimes the greatest strength wasn't in standing firm, but in knowing when to adapt. The storm was coming, and humanity would need all the allies it could get to weather it. The warning. The Virani vessel's docking sequence completed with a precision that made Earth's most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. Through Jupiter Station's reinforced windows, Commander Sarah Chen watched as the crystalline ship merged seamlessly with the station's emergency airlock, its surface restructuring itself to create a perfect seal. "Atmospheric analysis complete," Lieutenant Rivera reported, his voice tight with tension. "The Virani vessel's interior matches our atmosphere exactly. They've adapted it for us." Sarah nodded, trying to ignore the lingering images from the crystal sphere that now sat heavily in her uniform pocket. "Security teams in position." "Yes, Commander. Though I'm not sure what good conventional weapons would do against beings made of living crystal. Let's hope we don't have to find out." The airlock cycled, and Admiral Cathor emerged, its crystalline form even more impressive in person. The Virani leader stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body composed of interlocking crystal segments that shifted and moved with liquid grace. 2 lower-ranking Virani followed, their forms slightly less complex, but no less alien. Sarah stepped forward, painfully aware of the size difference between them. "Admiral Cathor, welcome to Jupiter Station." The Admiral's form caught the station's lights, creating a cascade of rainbow refractions. "Commander Chen, your adaptation to necessity is commendable. Though I sense your security teams remain anxious. Can you blame them?" "No." Cathor's mental voice carried a note of what might have been amusement. "But we have more pressing concerns than easing their discomfort." The Admiral gestured, and one of its companions produced what looked like a 3-dimensional star chart, projected from its own crystalline body. The map filled the docking bay, surrounding them with points of light. "This was our Galaxy 6 standard months ago," Cathor explained. Suddenly, portions of the map began to go dark, stars winking out in patterns that seemed random at first, but revealed a clear progression. "And this is now." Sarah watched as entire sectors disappeared. "The entity you showed me in the sphere. We call it the Void Hunger. It doesn't just destroy worlds, Commander. It erases them from existence, consuming not just matter, but the very fabric of space-time itself." Lieutenant Rivera stepped closer to the map, his face pale. "That's impossible. Nothing can erase space-time." Nothing in your physics, the second Varani corrected, its mental voice higher pitched than Cathor's. But there are older things in the universe than your understanding of physics. Much older. Sarah moved through the star map, studying the progression of darkness. These patterns, it's not random movement. It's hunting. Thor's form brightened slightly. Very observant, Commander. Yes, the void hunger appears to be conscious, or at least purposeful. It seeks out developed civilizations, particularly those with significant energy emissions. Like Earth, Sarah concluded grimly. Like Earth, Thor confirmed. Your world's energy signature is visible halfway across the galaxy. To the void hunger, you might as well be shouting your location into space. Sarah's hand found the crystal sphere in her pocket again. You said we have 6 months before it reaches Earth. What can we possibly do in 6 months against something that eats space-time? The third Varani stepped forward, its form reconfiguring to display complex mathematical equations in its crystalline surface. Alone? Nothing. But together, we might have a chance. We've spent centuries studying the void hunger, learning its patterns, developing technologies to combat it. Without much success, I'm guessing, or you wouldn't be here, Rivera pointed out. Correct, Cathor acknowledged. Our weapons can slow it, but not stop it. Our shields can resist it, but not indefinitely. We need something new, something the void hunger hasn't encountered before. And you think humans have this something? Sarah asked skeptically. Thor's form shifted, creating a series of complex geometric patterns. Your species has something we've never seen before: adaptability. In the brief time we've studied your history, we've witnessed countless examples of humans facing impossible odds and finding unexpected solutions, where our people spend centuries perfecting a single approach. Yours creates dozens of imperfect solutions and improves them through trial and error. You're saying you need our messiness, Sarah realized. Your creativity, Cathor corrected. Your ability to think beyond established patterns. The void hunger adapts to defeat any solution it encounters, but it can only adapt to patterns it recognizes. Your species' apparent chaos might be our greatest weapon. Sarah turned to study the star map again, watching as another sector winked out of existence. Somewhere out there, a civilization had just ended, erased so completely that it might never have existed at all. Her mind raced with possibilities, with the weight of the decision before her. I'll need to convince Earth Command, she said finally. They'll want proof data, something more concrete than a star map and theories. Thor moved closer, its crystalline form towering over her. Then perhaps it's time to show them what we showed you, Commander. But on a larger scale. The Admiral turned to its companions, who began to produce more crystal spheres, dozens of them, each pulsing with the same inner light as the one in Sarah's pocket. These contain not just images of the void hunger, but our complete research data, everything we've learned about it, every attempt we've made to stop it, every failure we've experienced. Your scientists will have full access to centuries of Irani knowledge. Sarah picked up one of the new spheres, feeling its warmth against her palm. This is going to cause panic when it gets out. People will be afraid. They should be afraid, Thor said simply. Fear can be useful, Commander. It can drive us to exceed our limitations, to reach beyond what we believe possible. The question is, will humanity let fear paralyze them, or will they transform it into action? Looking at the spreading darkness in the star map, Sarah made her decision. Lieutenant Rivera, prepare a priority transmission to Earth Command. Admiral Cathor, I want everything you have on this void hunger. If we're going to face this thing, we need to start preparing now. As she gave orders and the Varani began sharing their data, Sarah couldn't help but think about how quickly everything had changed. This morning, her biggest concern had been maintaining proper first contact protocols. Now, she was helping plan humanity's defense against a threat that defied the laws of physics. The crystal sphere in her pocket seemed to pulse in response to her thoughts, a reminder that time was running out. 6 months to save not just Earth, but existence itself. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. If the Virani wanted human creativity, they were about to get it in full force. Shadows in the void. 2 months into their joint mission, Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Virani flagship Crystal Dawn, watching stars die. The massive view screen showed real-time footage from their advanced probes, entire solar systems vanishing into an impossibly dark void that seemed to devour light itself. Probe 7 has gone dark, Lieutenant Rivera reported from his station, now an odd fusion of human and Virani technology. Last transmission shows the void expanding at twice the rate we initially calculated. Admiral Cathor's crystalline form pulsed with dim red light, a sign of concern, Sarah had learned. It's accelerating, learning, adapting, like it knows we're watching. Sarah muttered, her hand unconsciously touching the crystal sphere she still carried. In the 2 months since the Virani's arrival, the sphere had become something of a talisman. It stored memories, a constant reminder of what they faced. The joint Human-Virani Task Force had pushed the boundaries of both species' technologies, creating hybrid systems that would have been impossible just months ago. But watching another star system vanish into nothingness, Sarah wondered if any of it would be enough. Commander, Cathor's mental voice interrupted her thoughts. The void's new trajectory suggests its altered course. It's no longer moving directly toward Earth. Sarah frowned. That should be good news. Why don't you sound relieved? Because Cathor's form shifted, projecting a new set of calculations into the space between them. It's heading for the Proxima Centauri colony first, your closest off-world settlement. The bridge fell silent. Proxima Centauri had been humanity's first successful extrasolar colony, established 15 years ago. Over 10,000 people now called it home. How long? Sarah demanded. At current acceleration, 72 hours. Sarah's mind raced. We need to evacuate them. Now. Impossible, Rivera cut in, his fingers dancing across his console. Even with Virani drives, the nearest ships couldn't reach them in less than 4 days. We'd never get there in time. Thor's form brightened suddenly. Perhaps we don't need to reach them. The Admiral moved to the Central Command interface, its crystalline fingers meshing with the hybrid technology. A new image appeared on the main screen. Schematics for what looked like massive crystalline structures. These are quantum resonance arrays, Thor explained. We used them in our early attempts to fight the void. They failed as weapons, but their quantum field properties might be useful in another way. Sarah studied the schematics, her eyes widening as she began to understand. You want to try to teleport the entire colony? Not exactly. The arrays can't move matter across such distances, but they might be able to shift it slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. If we can move the colony into a different dimensional frequency, the void might pass right through them. Sarah finished, excitement building, like light passing through clear glass. Theoretically, Cathor cautioned, but we've never attempted anything on this scale, and we'd need to construct and position at least 3 arrays around the colony within 72 hours. Rivera shook his head. That's impossible, even with both our technologies. Nothing's impossible, Lieutenant. Sarah interrupted. Just improbable. She turned to Cathor. You said humans think differently than Virani, that we see solutions where you see impossibilities. Well, here's some human thinking. We don't need to build 3 perfect arrays. We just need 3 arrays that will work once. Cathor's form shifted in what Sarah had come to recognize as curiosity. Explain. We sacrifice longevity for speed, use unstable materials that'll burn out quickly but produce more power in the short term. We don't need the arrays to last forever, just long enough to phase shift the colony out of the void's path. The bridge erupted in activity as both human and Virani crew members began running calculations. Rivera's console sparked as he pushed the hybrid systems to their limits. It might work, he admitted, but the timing would have to be perfect. We'd have microseconds to activate the phase shift before the arrays burn out. Then we'll be perfect, Sarah stated firmly. She turned to Thor. Admiral, can your people construct these arrays if we help modify the design? Thor's form pulsed with multiple colors, amusement, concern, and something like admiration mixing together. You truly do think differently, Commander. Yes, we can construct them, but the power requirements will be met, Sarah assured him. Lieutenant Rivera, contact Earth Command. I need every fusion reactor they can spare immediately, and get me a direct line to the Proxima colony. They need to start preparing their people. As the bridge crew rushed to implement her orders, Sarah moved closer to the view screen, watching another star system vanish into the void. Admiral, there's something I don't understand. The void changed course, targeted our colony specifically. You said it hunts, but this feels personal. Thor moved to stand beside her, its crystalline form reflecting the dying starlight. Perhaps it is. We've theorized that the void possesses some form of intelligence. If so, it may have detected our preparations, recognized the threat we pose together. You're saying it's afraid of us. I'm saying it's never encountered our species working together before. Human creativity combined with Virani technology. Perhaps it senses something new, something unpredictable. Sarah's hand tightened around the crystal sphere in her pocket. Good. Let it be afraid. We got 72 hours to show it exactly why it should be. The next 3 days would push both species to their limits, testing not just their technology, but their ability to trust each other completely. As Sarah began issuing orders for what would become known as Operation Phase Shift, she realized that the Void had made a crucial mistake. By threatening humanity's first colony, it had given them something more powerful than any weapon, a reason to prove impossible things possible. Admiral, she said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips, let's show this thing what happens when it picks a fight with both our species. Thor's form brightened in response, and for the first time since the mission began, Sarah felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. The last line. Operation Phase Shift had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. The Proxima Centauri colony still existed, its 10,000 inhabitants somehow suspended between dimensional frequencies as the void passed harmlessly through their section of space. But victory had come at a terrible price. Commander Sarah Chen stared at the damage reports flooding her terminal aboard the Crystal Dawn. The jury-rigged quantum arrays had indeed burned out, but not before their energy discharge created a ripple effect through space-time. The void had reacted violently to the interference, changing course once again, this time heading straight for Earth. Status report, she called out, her voice hoarse from 20 hours without sleep. Lieutenant Rivera looked up from his station, his face illuminated by the red emergency lights. The void's acceleration continues to increase. New estimated arrival at Earth, 18 hours. The quantum disruption from the arrays seems to have angered it. Good, Sarah said grimly. Thor turned from his command position, crystalline form dimmed with concern. You consider this positive, Commander. It proves you were right, Admiral. The void isn't just a force of nature. It's intelligent. And if it's intelligent, it can be outmaneuvered. More importantly, it can be hurt. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. In all recorded history, nothing had ever managed to affect the void before. The phase shift operation had changed that, but the price of that knowledge might be Earth itself. The evacuation efforts? Sarah asked. Rivera shook his head. Even with every available ship, both human and Virani, we can only move about 12 million people off-planet in the time we have left. Earth's population is over 10 billion. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of those numbers. The crystal sphere in her pocket seemed heavier than ever. It stored memories of previous civilizations' extinctions, now a burning reminder of what failure meant. Commander, Thor's mental voice was gentle. Perhaps it's time to consider the Virani's last resort protocol. No. Sarah's response was immediate and firm. I've seen that option in your memories, Admiral. Using your entire fleet as a suicide weapon might slow the void down. but it won't stop it, and we'd lose any chance of finding a real solution. Then what do you propose? The Admiral's form pulsed with a mix of colors that Sarah had never seen before. Frustration, respect, and something like hope all blending together. Sarah moved to the central holographic display, where a real-time image of the void's approach was visible. We know it's intelligent now. We know it can be affected by quantum interference. And most importantly, we know it's capable of feeling threatened. She looked up at Cathor. Tell me, Admiral, in all your centuries of fighting this thing, did anyone ever try to talk to it? The bridge erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Rivera actually laughed out loud before realizing she was serious. Commander, he started, you can't be suggesting. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Sarah turned to Cathor. Your quantum arrays didn't just create interference. They established a momentary connection between dimensional frequencies. What if we modified that technology? Built something that could maintain that connection long enough to establish communication? Thor's form shifted rapidly, internal lights flickering as it processed the idea. The power requirements would be enormous, and there's no guarantee the void would even be capable of communication as we understand it. But it's possible. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Theoretically, but we would need a direct connection to Earth's power grid. And even then, the array would have to be positioned inside the void itself. Sarah finished. I know. Rivera stood up from his station. Commander, that's suicide. Nothing survives contact with the void. Nothing. Nothing has ever tried to talk to it either. Sarah pulled out the crystal sphere, holding it up to the light. Every civilization it's encountered has either tried to run or fight. Maybe that's why it keeps hunting us. Maybe that's all it knows how to do. Thor moved closer, its crystalline form towering over her. You're suggesting we try to change its nature. I'm suggesting we try to understand it. You showed me these memories to help me understand you, Admiral. Maybe we can do the same for the void. The bridge was silent as the implications of her plan sank in. It was crazy, impossible, and completely without precedent. Exactly the kind of thinking the Virani had come to Earth to find. If we fail, Thor said slowly, Earth will be defenseless. If we do nothing, Earth is defenseless anyway. Sarah squared her shoulders. Admiral, can your ships modify one of the quantum arrays into a communication device? Thor's form brightened slightly. Yes, but someone would have to pilot a ship carrying the array directly into the void to establish the connection. The pilot would almost certainly not survive. I know. Sarah's voice was quiet but firm. That's why I'll do it myself. Commander, no. Rivera started forward, but Sarah held up her hand. This isn't up for debate, Lieutenant. I've seen what this thing does to worlds. I've carried those memories with me for months now. If there's even a chance we can stop it here, stop it forever, then it's worth the risk. She turned to Cathor. Admiral, I'll need your fastest ship, and I'll need you to command Earth's combined defenses if this doesn't work. Lieutenant Rivera, begin the evacuations, but focus on getting our quantum technology off-planet. If this fails, humanity will need it wherever they go next. As the bridge erupted into activity, Sarah took one last look at the void's approach on the main screen. Somewhere in that impossible darkness was either humanity's extinction or its greatest breakthrough. In 18 hours, they'd know which. Commander, Cathor's mental voice was private now, meant for her alone. What you're proposing, it's not just impossible by Virani standards. It defies everything we know about the void. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. That's exactly why it might work, Admiral. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to try something impossibly human. The next few hours would determine not just Earth's fate, but potentially the fate of all civilizations the void might one day threaten. As Sarah began preparing for her mission, she realized that the pride that had once made her hesitate to work with aliens might now be the very thing that saved them all. Human pride. transformed into the courage to attempt the impossible. Tomorrow's dawn. Commander Sarah Chen's modified Virani vessel shrieked through space, its crystalline structure reconfigured for a single purpose: survival long enough to make contact. Behind her, Earth grew smaller, a blue marble suspended in space. Ahead, the void consumed everything, an absolute darkness that defied description. "Commander, you're approaching the theoretical safe limit," Lieutenant Rivera's voice crackled through the quantum comm. "Any closer and the void's effects will begin to interfere with ship systems." Sarah checked the modified quantum array's readings. The device, a fusion of human ingenuity and Virani technology, hummed with power drawn directly from Earth's combined energy grid. "Acknowledged. Beginning final approach." "Sarah." Thor's mental voice was clear despite the distance. "The void's reaction to your approach. It's unlike anything we've recorded before." She could see it herself. The darkness ahead was shifting, swirling in patterns that seemed almost curious. The void had devoured countless civilizations, but never had anyone flown directly into it, attempting communication instead of combat. "All or nothing now," Sarah muttered, her hand touching the crystal sphere one last time before placing it into the modified array. The sphere's stored memories would be part of their attempted communication. A library of life, of existence itself, offered to something that only knew how to destroy. The ship's sensors began screaming warnings as the void's influence reached them. The crystalline hull groaned, reality itself seeming to bend around the vessel. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations," Rivera reported, his voice breaking up. "The void it's changing somehow." Sarah watched as her ship's hull began to dissolve at the edges, the void's touch erasing matter itself. The quantum array pulsed with increasing intensity, fighting against the destruction. "Now or never," she whispered, and activated the device. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The quantum array burst into brilliant light, establishing a connection between dimensional frequencies that should have been impossible. Sarah's consciousness expanded as the array linked her mind directly to the void itself, using techniques adapted from Virani telepathy. And for the first time in history, humanity made contact with the void. It wasn't communication as she had imagined it. Instead of words or thoughts, she experienced pure sensation, an ancient, endless hunger born from the very beginning of the universe. The void was old, so incomprehensibly old that it made stellar evolution seem like the blink of an eye. But it was not mindless. The void was aware, and in that moment of contact, Sarah understood its nature. It consumed not out of malice, but out of a fundamental drive to return the universe to its original state of perfect entropy. Each civilization it devoured was an attempt to correct what it saw as the universe's greatest mistake: the emergence of order from chaos. Through the crystal sphere's memories, Sarah showed it everything. The beauty of existence, the miracle of life, the incredible improbability of consciousness itself. But more than that, she showed it change. How humanity had changed upon meeting the Virani, how the Virani had changed through working with humans, how every interaction between different species created something new and wonderful. The void's response was beyond words. Sarah felt its ancient consciousness grapple with these new concepts, felt its fundamental nature strain against the possibility that change itself might be the universe's greatest creation, not its greatest flaw. On the edge of oblivion, Sarah played her final card. Through the quantum link, she offered the void a choice: continue its eternal mission of destruction, or change, as all living things must change, and become something new. The void's consciousness pressed against hers, and for a moment that seemed to last an eternity, Sarah Chen felt the weight of the universe's oldest intelligence considering her offer. Then, everything changed. The darkness surrounding her ship began to shift, not consuming now but transforming. The void's very nature began to alter, its fundamental drive to destroy giving way to something else: curiosity. "Commander," Rivera's voice broke through her trance. "The void, it's pulling back. Energy readings are off the charts, but they're different. It's not destroying anymore. It's creating. Sarah watched in awe as the void retreated from Earth's solar system, its darkness now shot through with points of light. Where it had once devoured reality, it now seemed to be experimenting with it, testing the boundaries of creation rather than destruction. Sarah, Thor's mental voice was filled with wonder. What did you show it? The truth, she replied, her voice weak but triumphant. That the universe's greatest achievement isn't order or chaos, it's change. The ability to become something new. As her damaged ship limped back toward Earth, Sarah watched the void continue its retreat. The ancient intelligence had chosen to evolve, to transform its eternal hunger for entropy into a desire for understanding. In doing so, it had become something entirely new in the universe's history, a force of change rather than destruction. The crystal sphere, its stored memories now shared with the void, had burned out completely. But Sarah knew its purpose had been served. Just as it had once shown her the necessity of cooperation between species, it had shown the void the necessity of change itself. Commander Rivera's voice was thick with emotion. You did it. Earth is safe. All of existence is safe. No, Lieutenant, Sarah corrected him, watching as the last traces of the void vanished into deep space, leaving behind a trail of newborn stars. We did it. Humans and Virani together. Sometimes the impossible just needs a different perspective. As she guided her ship home, Sarah reflected on how much had changed in the months since she'd first refused to salute a crystalline admiral. Pride had nearly blinded her to the possibility of cooperation, just as it had blinded countless civilizations before. But in learning to adapt, to change, humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had taught the universe's oldest force the value of evolution itself. Thor's final mental message reached her as Earth grew larger in her view screen. Perhaps, Commander, this is what both our species were meant to discover, that the greatest strength lies not in refusing to change, but in choosing how to change. Sarah smiled, watching the sun rise over Earth's horizon. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new changes. But for the first time in history, all species could face that tomorrow without fear of the void. Because in the end, the price of pride had been worth paying. It had bought them not just survival, but understanding. And somewhere in the depths of space, an ancient intelligence that had once known only destruction began to learn the joy of creation.